It might have been my interpretation of it rather than them.
Yes, but
not necessarily them.
you know what we find with most therapists? They have a deep desire to keep you away from your fear. Because one of the reasons why many therapists choose therapy is because they're afraid and they don't want to address it. Now, I said to Peter yesterday, Peter came to me and had a chat with me about an issue that he was facing, and he had got some advice from somebody else and who has exactly the same problem in a larger degree than what Peter has. And that person gave him advice which at the time Peter accepted. And I said to Peter, well, you know, the person who advised you, he has the problem worse than you do. Now, how can he, who can't see his own problem, how can he accurately advise you what the problem is? He can't even see his own problem, so how can he advise you what your problem is? He's not going to advise you accurately on your problem. Now, what we see a lot of therapists doing is not accurately advising people about their problems. And a lot of therapists want to lead the person down a certain path because they have spirits with them leading the person away from their emotions, not into them. Right? And they view that as a success. And it's not success.
I've had confidence in this person and they have helped me with stuff.
Of course, there are things they will be able to help you with, but they'll only be the things that they themselves have personally dealt with to a degree. Does that make sense? So any therapist you go to is going to be able to help you as long as they don't have the same problem. And the problem is that many of the therapists do have the same problem. Does that make sense? So they cannot help you with those particular things. Now, what I'm suggesting to you is that many therapists do have a large degree of fear. So they often do not help people with fear, right? And I find quite frequently do not. I've only ever had one therapist who helped me with fear. And do you know what? The 3 or 4 months that I went to him, he never said a word to me. He didn't. He'd just say, get on the table, get on the table. 2 hours later, get off the table. And he never spoke any other time. He never suggested anything to me. He never made any suggestions. He never did anything. Right? And you know what I found from that? What I felt from that? He had an intention for me to go through whatever came up.
And something when you're receiving therapy is that you can't push through the layer you're at. You have to feel the layer that you're at. So if someone is advising you to push through what you're doing rather than experience what you're doing, it can't help because that resistance can't leave your soul unless you feel it.
So the reason why Corny started the healing group thing was because a lot of the ideas about therapy that are on the planet today don't help people. That's why people go back to them over and over again for years and years and years, right? They don't actually help. Many of them don't. The only way a person can truly help you on an issue with fear is if they've dealt with all of their fear. And how many people on the planet have done that? 0. And that includes myself. 0. So I am not going to be able to help other people in certain areas. Now, of course, I've dealt with lots of my fear, and the stuff that's left, a lot of it is about identity, being Jesus, and my memories about, what I used to do in the spirit world. You don't have all of those things to deal with, so there's high likelihood that I'll be able to help you some with most of your fears, right? But I can't help you with everything because I haven't dealt with everything. And that applies to everyone. The only person who can help you with everything is God. And the only thing you can do is trust that process with God. Trust that process with God.
If I can just explain why I asked you that question. It was very good what we talked about in terms of therapy. But it's something that you can do to help yourself. If you felt that you were in a place, and this goes for everyone, where you were feeling more humble, you felt like you were accepting more truth about yourself, you were using your will, you
Processing
had
things.
faith. So you were feeling more positive, even though you felt afraid, you were feeling positive. And then something happens, and suddenly you're in this place where everything feels terrible and you're down on yourself and you've got no faith anymore. Go back to what happened.
And what you felt at the
What
time.
happened and what you avoided, what fear you avoided at the time. Because when you deal with that, that same trigger can never send you into this downward spiral again. And can I just also say, Alwyn, I feel that you are in, like, similar to Ivana, like I feel like you've made steps that other people here have not yet made. And that is that you are very self-aware when it comes to your fear and aware of the ways that you avoid it.
Avoid it.
And for a lot of people, just like I was 5 years ago, I was like, I'm not afraid. And a lot of people still feel that, even though they might intellectually say, yeah, I've got fear. I can feel you know it that you've got fear.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. So stop seeing it as a step in the wrong direction. Does that make sense? Like, it's very, very good that you're now aware of a lot of things that you weren't aware of before. And while you've been aware of your fear prior to meeting us, you probably haven't been aware of all the ways you've used to avoid it, or all the ways you've used to control it, or all the ways you've used to have a happy life with, and while it's inside of you, now you are. So this is very good.
And you're also learning a really valuable lesson about what happens when you avoid a fear. It opens you up to a whole lot of negative things. And if you can go retrace your steps emotionally to that point where everything started to go pear-shaped, and I often say that to people, what happened in the relationship where suddenly things went from feeling like they were progressing to now they're in, like, feels like everything's stagnant and we feel terrible, or in your own progress, or whatever it is, go back and find what is the thing that I skipped. There is always a thing that you skipped. And dealing with that will not only ensure that that same trigger doesn't do that again, it'll help you in a lot of other situations. Yeah.
What's the time?
Thank you.